Tasmania has seen many absurd transport proposals, from an underground loop railway in Hobart to a triangular cable car at the Cataract Gorge. We're used to weird ideas. But recently, the craziest one has been brought back. A cable car through UNESCO World Heritage areas between Dove Lake and the Cradle Mountain Gateway is being proposed by a consortium of tourist groups and the Tasmanian government. Cradle Mountain is an area with outstanding natural beauty and untouched scenic areas, and a cable car soaring through the sky all but destroys that. There are also plans for tunnels, multi-story buildings, and over 40 pillars through the national park. Hi, I'm Tasmanian, and here's why we should ditch the Cradle Mountain cableway. Firstly, I should preface this by saying I support public transport improvements at Cradle Mountain. I support several improvements to existing transport which I will discuss later in the video, but please remember, this is not an attack on public transport infrastructure or upgrades. I support environmentally friendly and less visually damaging infrastructure upgrades at Cradle Mountain. To begin, here is an excerpt from the Tasmanian National Parks Association to outline the problem. Everyone had thought that the most preposterous aspect of the 2016 Cradle Mountain Master Plan, the cable car from the visitor centre to Dove Lake, had long been forgotten. Unfortunately, the nightmare of another major intrusion into the naturalness of Cradle Valley is turning into reality, with the Coordinator General recently announcing it to the annual conference of the Tourism Industry Council of Tasmania as a fait accompli. Any consultation will relate to the finer details of the cableway, not the concept of a cableway or the appropriateness of such a contraption in an overwhelmingly natural area. The cornerstone of World Heritage Area management in the past has been full and open consultation from the beginning. The proposed consultation, after gaining cabinet approval, is the complete opposite. It is not consultation, it is informing people about the event. Note that this is being driven by the Coordinator General, whose main responsibility is for economic development, not by any authority with expertise in national park management. The cableway was initially proposed on the 2016 Master Plan, which was initiated by the tourism industry. It was based on a survey of people with little or no actual experience of Cradle Mountain or the options for access to Dove Lake. The Master Plan did not deserve much credibility, but its uncritical endorsement by both major political parties and the Parks and Wildlife Service has already led to the inappropriate and unnecessary viewing shelter on the former Dove Lake car park. The master plan has gone unchallenged for far too long, but now we have good evidence that the cableway is neither wanted nor needed. A recent visitor survey conducted on behalf of the Parks and Wildlife Service shows very high levels of satisfaction with both the shuttle bus service and the entire experience of visiting the Cradle Mountain area. This sums up the core problem pretty well. The Cradle Mountain cable car will run through one of the most environmentally significant areas in the world. It falls under 7 UNESCO World Heritage Area guidelines, tied for the highest in the world. Currently, transport into Cradle Mountain is provided by shuttle bus. Private vehicle access into the park is heavily limited, and mostly just for those staying at accommodation in the park or those up before the bus is running. The shuttle bus is provided by McDermott's coaches using a special Cradle Discoverer livery. The bus runs approximately every 10 minutes during the tourism season, but because it doesn't run to a fixed timetable, this can get quite convoluted. The service starts at the Cradle Mountain Gateway Centre, the major new commercial and visitor precinct for Cradle. There will be the following amenities upon completion according to the Cradle Mountain Visitor Experience Master Plan. Park information, private retail business, a lounge bar and cafe, event hosting spaces, private tour and experience centres, a short-term shuttle bus terminal, and 650 parking spaces. Now covering these, it's absurd. There will be space for up to 15 private tour operators in the centre in a publicly owned and taxpayer-funded building and national park, and all the operational details besides the essential park ones will be given to the private sector, and the shuttle buses are temporary. Parks and Wildlife have consistently stated that they are building a cable car because of its environmental benefits and its ability to get cars off the road. They clearly have not considered the basic facts associated with this. By replacing a 5-stop bus with a 3-stop cable car, those wanting to visit the Snake Hill or Interpretation Centre areas will be left in the dust. It appears they are planning on completely cutting the bus when the cable car is initiated, which will force more cars onto the road between the Cradle Mountain Lodge, Ranger Station and Interpretation Centre and the Visitor Centre. This will remove public transport access to the famous Enchanted Walk and the largest visitor accommodation centre in Cradle Mountain, at the Peppers Cradle Mountain Lodge. 44% of shuttle bus users used at least one of these stops under the Cradle Mountain Shuttle Bus Visitor Survey of 2021. But now you're wondering what's actually happening with the proposal. In 2016, when the Visitor Master Plan was released, the cable car was laughed at across the state. The proposal was so absurd it was hilarious. Despite this, the Tasmanian government, who had recently been blocked by UNESCO from logging in Cradle Mountain National Park, seemed like they really wanted to ruin the area in a different way. The cable car was proposed as a very serious transport option with seemingly very high rates of public approval. However, almost all of the consultation for the cable car came from interstate and international tourists at Dove Lake, who would obviously want a more scenic way to get to the lake. Far less Tasmanians were surveyed, and they had an overall lower positive response to it. And then there was the aftermath. The Tasmanian National Parks Association and the Friends of Cradle Valley both denounced the cable car. The Tasmanian Greens and the Bob Brown Foundation also criticised the move. The cable car gradually faded out of the public consciousness for the time, as the state government decided to build up the epitome of brutalist architecture at Dove Lake for a new viewing centre, ending up years late and heavily over budget. I've been to this centre, and it is almost always empty, cold and desolate. The shelter has been a complete stuff-up by the state government, and they try to justify it by stating, while the cable car terminal will bustle with activity, the viewing shelter is intended to be a respectful contemplative space. Sure, millions of dollars into an empty piece of metal. While that mess was undergoing, Parks and Wildlife Service built a similarly bad visitor centre at the site of an abandoned airstrip to the north of the park. Then some actually good improvements came. New hybrid diesel-electric buses were ordered and delivered for the Cradle Discoverer, and a new bus interchange opened at the new visitor centre. This, people thought, brought an end to the cable car saga. However, in 2023, when the Dove Lake shelter finally opened, the then Minister for Parks stated in response to the Cradle Mountain Transportation Study intended on justifying a cable car, "We expect to be sharing the business case with the Australian government in the first half of the year, and, depending on their response and the discussions that we've had, we'll bring it out to the public as soon as possible after that." It's been over 2 years since this was stated, and no plan has been released. However, the cost of the project, initially budgeted at $30 million, has risen to $60 million, and most recently to $190 million for the cable car. Yet again, we thought the cable car was dead in the water, but it keeps being brought out whenever it fits the politicians. In March 2025, ahead of the federal election, Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe brought his economic priorities for federal funding to the public, including $180 million to develop and construct a cable car at Cradle Mountain. This is the last we've heard of the project, but with a new transport minister after the latest election, we're surely going to see a lot more on this soon. But now we get to what we can do instead of building the cable car. The first and most pressing issue in transport at Cradle that isn't being addressed is links to the major cities. I propose a new twice-daily coach bus linking Cradle Mountain to Devonport via Wilmot and Forth. This will help bring people from the cities to Cradle affordably and environmentally. Currently, the only transport to Cradle comes by private shuttles costing in the range of $90 one way from Launceston or more. Besides this, we should invest in fully electric buses for the shuttle, potentially putting the service out to public tender with other Tasmanian bus companies like Kinetic and TassyLink. Enough buses should be ordered to allow a 5-minute frequency during peak tourism season. The new buses should also be equipped with heating, extra large baggage storage areas for bushwalkers below floor, and be able to run on all the conditions Cradle can offer. Also important that snow plows are run more efficiently during the winter seasons. I've caught the bus on a day it wasn't running beyond the interpretation centre because of snow on the road, and did not resume for several hours after the running day had started. I'd also like an additional stop be provided at or near the Cradle Mountain Lodge, serving the lodge, accommodation, and nearby walking tracks. A proper structured timetable should also be established, and the road should be upgraded to be fully 2 lanes, and cycling on the road should also be promoted as a way of accessing the park, potentially with a roadside cycleway or bike lanes between Dove Lake and the Gateway Centre. Some minor improvements that are needed includes an extension of the Cradle Valley Boardwalk from the Interpretation Centre to the Gateway Centre, and removing the paid tickets on the shuttle bus that were introduced in 2023 to no public fanfare and a lot of public hate. This brings me to the end of the video on the proposal for the Cradle Mountain Cableway. I've been looking forward to making this video for a long time, and let's hope Cradle will never be covered with these overhead wires. Cradle Mountain is an absolutely amazing natural environment, sadly suffering from the effects of commercialization and over-tourism. Let's hope that in the future, Cradle Valley will be a peaceful and quiet area for contemplation and exploration, without the sound of car engines or overhead cable cars. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time on Tasmanian.